When I first started learning how to code, it didn't take me long to start hearing people mention on social media about this thing called the tutorial trap, this dangerous thing that was going to sap your potential of becoming a programmer. It is actually quite a serious thing. Not that it's going to risk your life or do anything damage like that, but it could definitely hamper your progress in learning how to code and becoming part of this profession that you want to be part of. So let's have a look at it. What is it? Are you in it? And how can you get out of it? So, what is this tutorial trap that everybody's mentioning about? Well, the best way probably to be able to figure this out is we're going to tell a story. See if this fits any description that you know of. So, you're learning how to code. You've done a whole bunch of amazing things with these tutorials at your guide. Maybe you've gone onto Udemy, YouTube, you've gone and found some books, and you're learning through these things. You're making amazing pieces of software. Brilliant. However, you then decide, I need a portfolio project, I've got a customer that I can do some work for, or I've got an idea that I want to bring to life. So you start trying to make it. But as soon as you try and write a single bit of your own code, just blank, nothing, which doesn't make sense because this roadblock shouldn't be there. You've made all sorts of things with these tutorials, these guides through programming. But now you try and do it yourself, your head's not in it, you can't do it. Well, that is the tutorial trap. Basically, what happens is that you've gone from tutorial to tutorial to tutorial. You've gone, picked up that pace, you've pushed through, you've been motivated, driven, you've really gone through learning all these subjects. Brilliant, but it hasn't synced in. And because your hand has been held through all of these tutorials, whether that's in text or video format or whatever, it's not allowed it to sink in and be able to be something that you can bring back. Now, we're not saying in any way, shape, or form that you're going to remember everything. Isn't how it works. Programmers, senior programmers, they're Googling simple stuff all the time because it's just, you're not going to keep it all in your head. However, they do know the mindset of how to go about writing code. And obviously there are basic things that that you can do and that they know where to look as well to get the knowledge of how to implement what they're learning in their own designs. So what can we do about it? Well, we have a few suggestions, but first of all, the number one rule, the one that always gets me hung up, and I know that I was stuck in for quite a while. So the biggest rule that you want to keep in mind, and I know that hampered me so much when I was going through different tutorials and I got stuck in this rut, was don't code along. Just don't do it. Don't sit there quickly referring, pausing the video every 10 seconds to type out whatever they've done. Don't do it while they're saying it. Don't do it while you're reading it. Just sit there. Just take it in. Take notes. Just look at what they're making and see the beginning, from beginning to end, of how they're making this app, this aspect of a program, whatever it may be. I know it's tempting. You want to really push through it. It's going to take longer not to do it this way, but it isn't. It's going to save you so much time because you're going to have to go back and over and over and over it again. We don't need to do that. You could just literally just stop, listen, watch, take it in, absorb it, then go back and code. Typically, tutorial videos, whether that's YouTube or Udemy or something, they tend to be about 20, 15 minutes long. So between that sort of time is not bad for our memory. So watch through that little 20-minute, 15-minute chunk, let it just go by, see where you're going to end up, and then you can code through knowing the direction you're going. You might have to rewatch the video again. You may have to reread the article again. That's okay. But just exercise your head in trying to figure out, where am I going with this? Why am I doing this? And that's going to help things sink in so much deeper. So that is the number one rule, the number one gripe that got me stuck in this tutorial trap. However, there is a couple more suggestions that are going to do, but the first of all is an attitude I really think holds us back, that you need to develop if you're going to become a good programmer and get out of this rut. So it flashed up on the screen just now, the header patience. And that, honestly, is so key. Because I don't know about how you feel about learning how to code, but for me, I was impatient. I just wanted to go through the tutorials. I didn't want to spend time doing it. I wanted to push. I was trying to get from tutorial to tutorial, push, cram the learning, get it all in, try and be able to take this subject, learn it, develop it, and then be able to take it and use it on my own work and whatever. It's not going to happen that way. In fact, you're going to make it longer by not having patience, because patience is going to make you take your time to look through the subjects you're learning, understand the thought process, and then you can write better code and you can get it to sink in of why you're doing things. Like I said just now, number one suggestion, not coding along, watch it through. It's going to take at least double the time, obviously, to watch through the video, then work through it again yourself. I understand that, and it's obviously going to gripe that you're going to get restless, you want to push forward, but patience is the key to making this work. Just relax, take a breath, and just let knowledge sink in. So, what other ideas could we have? Here's a couple of suggestions that I found really helpful. Hopefully, they'll help you too. The number one I would say that's just a starter is to make notes. Try and write down what you've just read or what you've just watched. So, for example, you watch a video on how to make constants or how to make variables, how to make functions, something basic. Try and jot out in your notes how to do what those parts. What is the keyword? What do you have to put as a name? How do you assign a value to it? What's the input and outputs of a function? What does that mean? What would you put in there? What could you get out? How the structure of how that works. Try and make notes. And in doing so, obviously, again, like we said, patience is key because you're not writing code. That's not what you're doing at the moment. You're writing notes about what you've just learned. But doing so helps you apply what you've learned and make it sink in so that you can take it in that bit better and develop your understanding of the subject. When you understand it, you can code it better. So try and break them down like that.
Okay, so I've just watched a video about gradients in SwiftUI and how to put them in, because obviously Swift and SwiftUI is the language I'm learning, but however, whatever you may be learning is what you might be using. So it's just gone through. It was only a 10-minute video, just going through some simple stuff about how to use gradients in SwiftUI. So I'm just going to quickly, I haven't coded along anything to do with that. So I'm just going to now try and bring back to my mind, and it doesn't have to be 100% accurate and every literal sentence that is said in the video, but I just want to have something so that I'm bringing it back to my mind and I'm trying to get the main points into my head of what I've just listened to and what I've just been shown. So the way I tend to do it is more of a mind map sort of style. I apologize for my handwriting. Scribbly as anything, isn't it? Right, so I saw that there was 3 types. There's linear, there was radial, and there was angular, which I didn't see any useful. I've never actually used angular gradients at all. Always linear, actually. And I can't see how to spell it. Angular. It's close enough. And how's it constructed? I normally have the gradient like that. And for that bit, I would then actually put in a gradient. They had colors, which was an array. And then it had a start point. And then it had a finish point, end point. So the array was of colours, as many as needed. Start point, it could be top left, bottom, wherever. And I'm going to put same here. And I'm also going to say, obviously, that you just put a point, and list will show. I'll show. So then I'm going to say that that was linear. Radial is same. No end and start point, but a radius. So if you notice there is nothing fancy on there really. I've just tried to bring back to my mind basics of what he was talking about. Okay, so gradients. I can get 3 types of gradient, simple without going through custom ones. It's constructed simply enough by putting gradient as a modifier on the view with colours. So an array of colours, and I have a start point which I can choose from, an end point, and that's going to customize my gradient. If I wanted to do a radial gradient, it's actually the same construct, but I just noted that there's no start and end point in this, but an actual radius to the circle because it's radial, so it's a circle. Now again, this is just a little exercise for myself so that I've seen a 10-minute video, I've coded nothing along, but I've tried to just bring it back to my mind. And now I would then go and try and code this. Just try and make a shape on a view and then put a gradient on it. So 1 linear, 1 radial, for example, and an angular. And from that, it just helps start practicing to sink it into your mind and start bringing back things that you need to use. In this way, instead of just coding through the tutorial and not really taking much in, I've tried to do something just to try and be able to bring it back into my head. So that's one type of way that I would say is useful.
So tip number 2, what I'd suggest doing is when you've done a tutorial, gone through and you've made, it's normally a sign around a project, so whether that's a web page or an app or whatever you're making, make it again. Delete the project or keep it, make a new one and make it again. And understand, you've done it already, which is great, but to exercise that practice and practice and practice. So writing out those table views and the scroll views and everything else that you're using to be able to get in the habit of understanding how you would go about building an app yourself. And sometimes, I know with different tutorials out there, they give you extra little subjects to do, little tasks to try and get you to understand better what you've just done. So implement that as well while you're coding. Keep it in mind of, oh, I want to be able to add this, or I want to change this, or doing it slightly in a different way. Really will deepen your knowledge, and it will make it so that when you have to code without a tutorial in front of you, your own project, clients' projects, whatever it may be, you've already got that headspace there. Your cap's in the right direction of just being able to know this is how I'd construct an app. This is the process I would use. Brilliantly going to help you sink in. So step number 3, I would arguably say is probably the best way to not get stuck into a tutorial trap and to be able to progress effectively as a programmer. However, saying that, it's also going to be the longest and the one with the most need for patience and motivation and discipline. So I understand it wouldn't be for everyone, or maybe it's one that you would choose to do when you've learnt the basics of how to do certain things, maybe applying the other tips that we had, maybe, but definitely the most effective, which is to make your own project. Maybe it's duplicating something that exists that you like, or maybe it's duplicating an idea that you would like to see in your own app, making your own app or web page or whatever it is, piece of software. Try and make it. And then as you go through making it, try and break up what you need. So you need different elements that is going to make this work. Then you go and find the tutorials that help you to make that element. You apply that to your project, and then you go to the next element and the next element. And there are hiccups along the way. There is a lot to learn and a big, steep learning curve to begin with. But this is how programmers and other people do this. So, a person in a job who needs to do something, there's an aspect to their program that they don't know how to do or can't remember correctly. So that's what they do. They find the tutorials and the teachings that help them do that aspect. They apply it to their project and then they move on. Instead of having to do tutorial after tutorial, you are using those tutorials as tools to learn effectively in your own practice and own project, which is a brilliant way of being able to make that sink in because you know where you want to go and you've got that thought process already. So that's it. They were a couple of tips that I found helpful when I was trying to get out of this rut, just watching tutorials and not making any progress, which is, it kind of gets you down because obviously you're giving all this time to learning this subject and you're not making any progress. So hopefully you found that helpful, whether that's because you're stuck in this situation or whether it's because you don't want to get stuck in the situation, which would be even better. So really do hope that they're helpful for you. Please let us know if there's any tips or suggestions that you find as well down below. And obviously, like with any YouTube video, feel free to subscribe or like or click any of the buttons that are underneath the video. And we'll see you again soon.